They say the Sahara Desert hides more than just sand, beneath its endless dunes. There may be the ruins of a city so advanced it's been spoken of for over 2,000 years. A city of gold, knowledge and power, wiped from the earth in a single night. Plato called it Atlantis, and some believe we've already found it, right here, in the middle of the Sahara. But how could a mythical island city be buried under one of the driest places on Earth? That's the mystery we're about to unfold. Stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you might never look at the Sahara the same way again. It starts with a strange shape, a massive ring formation in the desert, so big it can only be seen from space. It's called the Eye of the Sahara, officially known as the Richat structure. And its size? Nearly 30 miles across. Perfectly circular. It looks unnatural. But here's the part that makes people's hearts race. Its rings match, almost exactly, the description Plato gave of Atlantis. A central island, surrounded by alternating rings of water and land. Coincidence? Or is this the smoking gun we've been looking for? Because as we'll soon uncover, the Eye of the Sahara is more than just a pretty pattern in the sand. It holds clues, geological, archaeological, and maybe even historical, that have been hiding for thousands of years. Plato wrote about Atlantis around 360 BC. He described it as lying beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. He said it was a vast island kingdom, wealthy beyond imagination and home to a powerful, advanced civilization. But here's the part that makes your skin tingle. If you take his directions and account for ancient geography, the location could very well point to the western coast of Africa, and from there, an inland sea that may have once reached deep into the Sahara, right to where the Eye now sits. That's right, the Sahara might not have always been a desert, and if it once held rivers, lakes, or even seas, then the Eye of the Sahara could have been a perfect coastal city. And it gets even better. Satellite imagery shows that the Eye is surrounded by what looks like dried riverbeds, enormous channels carved into the land. Evidence of flowing water on a massive scale. Some scientists believe these were once connected to the Atlantic Ocean itself. If that's true, then the Eye wouldn't just match Plato's description in shape. It would match it in location. But before we jump to conclusions, we have to ask, is the Eye of the Sahara just a freak geological formation? Or is it the eroded skeleton of the most famous lost city in human history? Geologists will tell you the Eye was formed by natural processes, uplifted rock, volcanic activity, erosion over millions of years. And yet, even they admit, it's unusual. The layers are almost too perfect, too symmetrical. And then there's the mystery of the artifacts. Yes, artifacts. Because scattered across the Sahara, near the Eye, explorers have found ancient tools, arrowheads, and even fossilized fish bones. Fish bones in the middle of a desert. What kind of cataclysm could turn an ocean-rich civilization into lifeless desert? And could it happen again? To us? Some researchers think the answer lies in the Younger Dryas period, around 12,000 years ago, a time when the Earth's climate changed violently, possibly due to a comet impact. Sea levels rose, weather patterns shifted, and ancient civilizations vanished. If Atlantis really existed, this would be the perfect window in history for it to disappear. And the Eye could be what's left, But here's where it gets truly strange. Because when you compare the Eye of the Sahara to Plato's Atlantis, the similarities aren't just close, they're almost too close. Plato described Atlantis as having concentric circles of land and water, 3 rings of ocean, 2 rings of land, with a central island in the middle. The Eye? 3 visible rings, perfectly spaced, a central plateau, right in the middle. He said the city measured 127 stadia across. That's about 23 kilometers. The Eye? Roughly the same. So, is this all just one giant coincidence? Or have we been staring at Atlantis from space, without realizing it? If this is Atlantis, it changes everything we thought we knew about history. It would mean an advanced civilization existed thousands of years earlier than our textbooks admit. It would mean human history is far older and far stranger than we've been told. And yet, the Eye of the Sahara has barely been excavated. No major archaeological digs, no massive funding. Almost like someone doesn't want us to know what's under there, which begs the question, what would happen if we did dig it up? What might we find? And what might it prove? Some amateur explorers claim they've already found ancient walls, submerged ruins, and man-made stone blocks in the area. Others say they've found traces of precious metals, even orichalcum, the legendary metal of Atlantis. Mainstream science dismisses these claims as fantasy, but the pattern is there, a pattern that's hard to ignore. And that's just the beginning, because next, we're going to piece together the real geological evidence, the kind that even scientists can't explain away. And when we do, you'll see why some believe the Eye of the Sahara is the single most compelling candidate for Atlantis ever discovered. Imagine standing where the Eye of the Sahara is today and seeing waves crash against its outer rings, berths soaring over saltwater bays, sailboats gliding between harbors. It sounds impossible, right? But science says maybe it's not. The Sahara wasn't always a desert. In fact, just 10,000 years ago, it was green, covered in rivers, grasslands and massive lakes. This period is called the African Humid Period. And if you pull up satellite imagery, you can still see the scars of those ancient waterways, leading straight toward the Eye. So if there was water here, could the Eye have been a coastal city, exactly as Plato described? Scientists have discovered ancient shorelines etched into the desert rocks. These lines show that at some point in history, the water was far higher, high enough to flood the lower rings of the Eye. It's almost like the structure was built for water. Channels carved to direct flow, circular walls that could have acted as barriers against waves. That's no accident. If this was natural erosion, why would it look like engineered fortifications? Some researchers think there was once an inland sea stretching across modern-day Mauritania. It would have connected to the Atlantic through a narrow passage, making it perfect for trade. And if Atlantis was the center of a great maritime empire, this would have been an ideal location. But if this was once a bustling harbor city, what happened? Why is it now buried under layers of sand? This is where it gets catastrophic. Around 11,600 years ago, the exact date Plato gives for Atlantis' destruction, the Younger Dryas period came to a violent end. One theory says a massive comet or asteroid struck Earth. The impact would have melted glaciers, caused mega tsunamis, and triggered global flooding. If a wall of water ripped through this part of Africa, Atlantis could have been wiped away overnight. And the strangest part, there's evidence of this event, just a few hundred miles north of the Eye. In the Sahara's desert sands, scientists have found a layer of black, glass-like material called Libyan desert glass. It's formed when sand is instantly melted at temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun, usually from a meteor strike. If something like that hit the region, it could explain the destruction Plato described. So, did an asteroid really erase a civilization here? And if it did, is it possible the survivors spread their knowledge to other parts of the world? Here's where the plot thickens. Ancient structures across the globe, in Egypt, Mesoamerica, even Southeast Asia, share eerily similar designs and astronomical alignments. Some historians wonder, could they be the fingerprints of Atlantis' survivors? But there's another mystery. Why hasn't the Eye been fully excavated? If it could rewrite history, wouldn't archaeologists be racing to dig it up? In the 1960s, a French research team conducted a survey of the area. They reported unusual stone formations and artifacts, but their findings were never widely published. Since then, official studies have been scarce. It's almost as if the site has been quietly ignored. Coincidence or a cover-up? Some believe governments fear that proving Atlantis existed would rewrite history books and challenge established timelines of human civilization. Others say it's just too remote, too harsh, and too expensive to study. But the fact remains, no major excavation has ever taken place. And here's something that will make you lean in closer. Satellite images from the area have mysteriously been blurred in some mapping services. Yes, blurred. Certain close-up shots of the ice inner rings lack detail, almost like they've been deliberately degraded. When questioned, mapping companies give vague answers about data limitations. So what exactly is being hidden in the heart of the Sahara? Explorers who've managed to reach the Eye report massive, perfectly cut stones, strange fossil patterns, and even the remains of what look like roads leading outward. Mainstream science says these are just natural rock formations, but the sheer symmetry makes you wonder. If the African humid period ended with massive floods, then receding waters could have left the city stranded inland. And over thousands of years, the desert winds would have buried what remained. But there's something else, something physical, that makes the site even more compelling. The outer rings of the Eye are made of a harder rock than the inner rings, almost like defensive walls. Erosion patterns suggest they were once vertical, towering structures before time wore them down. Walls that high, in a perfect circle. Why would nature build them that way? Geologists say it's the result of uplift and erosion, but the perfect spacing, the central plateau, and the water channels cut through the rings all hint at human design. And if it was human-made, it would be the oldest large-scale city on Earth, older than Mesopotamia, older than Egypt, and potentially the origin of the very idea of a great civilization. But if that's true, it raises one more disturbing question. What could wipe out something that powerful? We've matched Plato's words, the maps, the legends, the geology. Now comes the hardest question of all. If the Eye of the Sahara really is Atlantis, how did it die? Plato says the city was destroyed in a single day and night of misfortune. Floods, earthquakes, fire from the sky. It's the kind of language ancient people used to describe cataclysms they couldn't fully understand. And strangely, the geological record here agrees. Around 11,600 years ago, The Sahara region experienced sudden climate chaos, violent enough to wipe out entire ecosystems. So what triggered it? Nature? Or something more? The Younger Dryas impact theory suggests a comet slammed into Earth's ice sheets. The meltwater floods would have been biblical, mega tsunamis racing hundreds of miles inland. And if the Eye sat near an ancient sea, those waves would have obliterated everything. But the destruction might not have ended there. Impact debris could have caused massive fires. We see evidence of this in charred soil layers across North Africa, ash mixed into the sand, and the strange Libyan desert glass. Proof of temperatures so extreme, nothing living could survive. If this was Atlantis, its end would have been as fast as it was violent. And yet, something remains. Scattered artifacts, oral traditions, the ghostly outline of the rings. They whisper of a civilization that once ruled the Oasis and then was erased. But here's the most shocking part. The Eye may still be hiding untouched ruins underground. Ground-penetrating radar studies have been limited, but some scans reveal dense, rectangular anomalies beneath the sand. They could be natural, or they could be the collapsed remains of walls, temples, even palaces. If true, that would be physical proof Atlantis was real. And here's something chilling. The deeper you dig into the Sahara's history, the more advanced it seems. Rock carvings thousands of years old depict boats, maps of constellations, and even animals that haven't lived here in millennia. Was this desert once home to scientists, astronomers, and navigators far ahead of their time? Plato's Atlantis had a navy capable of crossing oceans. If the Eye's people were seafarers, they could have reached the Americas long before Columbus. A theory some researchers are starting to take seriously. If true, it would rewrite everything we thought we knew about history. And maybe that's why no one's rushing to prove it. Because if Atlantis existed, it means civilizations rise and fall far more often, and far more catastrophically than we've been taught. And if it happened before, could it happen again? We live in a world where climate change, asteroid threats, and rising seas are real. Atlantis might not just be a legend, it could be a warning from the past. And here's the twist. The warning might be carved into the very shape of the Eye itself. Seen from space, the Eye looks like a giant target, or ripple. Some believe it's a message, a sign left by survivors for future generations, saying, "This is where it happened. This is what to watch for." A message to us. In the end, whether the Eye of the Sahara is truly Atlantis or not, it is undeniably one of the most mysterious places on Earth. Its perfect rings, its hidden fossils, its match to Plato's account. And perhaps that's the real magic. Atlantis may never be proven in the way science demands, but the Eye forces us to ask deeper questions about our past. Questions that make history feel alive again. Because if we could lose a whole civilization once, what else might we have forgotten? Maybe the Eye is Atlantis. Maybe it's something even older, from a time before written history. Either way, its story is still being written, and you've just been part of it. Standing in the Eye today, you feel the wind whip across the barren rings. You see the horizon shimmer with heat. It's silent, but if you close your eyes, you can almost hear the sound of waves, the clang of ship bells, and voices speaking a language long lost. Maybe this was Atlantis. Maybe it still is, just sleeping under the sands, waiting for us to remember. The desert has kept its secret for thousands of years, and maybe one day will dig deep enough to find the truth. Until then, the eye will keep watching. If you want to uncover more mysteries hidden in plain sight, subscribe to Shadows Unfolded, where the past isn't dead, it's just buried.